is Brad Muniz, and I'd like to welcome you to Sobel Insights. Sobel Insights is a weekly series where we provide some brief information on various topics. Our goal is to keep these sessions to 15 minutes. At this time, we do not offer CPE. If you have any ideas for topics or speakers, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Our topic today is communication alternatives. And the speaker that's going to be speaking today, you may have seen him in his previous video where he talked about reviewing your current communication service provider and situation. And if you haven't seen that video, I strongly recommend you go and look at it. Chuck gave some great information. Our speaker today is Charles DiPietro with ComLogic Partners. And Chuck, where do you see the biggest shift in technology, these days, and really what's driving it?
Well, hello, Brad. Thanks for having me. The biggest shift in technology, technology is the fastest changing sector in business these days with, everything that's going on. And quite honestly, that continues to change quickly. And I think what's happened is we see the biggest trend in change, partly due to the last 8 months of pandemic. It's caused a rush to technology refresh because, quite honestly, it's considered like a disaster. People leaving the office and home workforces now have changed a whole shift in the dynamic. So most of the technology trend right now is going more towards more internet-based services, remote office, cloud-based services, and the like. The idea now is to take your workforce now and make it seamless to what you were used to using when you were sitting across, the office from each other. And it's a trend to provide greater degrees of collaboration amongst your employees and your customers. Traditional phone systems now that are working on, old public switch network, that's technology hasn't changed in 110 years. Those companies are looking at alternatives such as voice over IP or using unified communications, where you may be able to layer a voice component on top of an existing Microsoft Teams application or like that. In which case, your laptop or your desktop, remote laptop or desktop really becomes your telephone with the use of some speakers and a microphone or a headset. The data now is moving to the cloud, where it's cloud-based services. It's a service that runs in the background. It's all in a data center somewhere. The servers are now no longer local. Basically, what happens is your screen changes and all the computing is done on the back end in a data center. Those data centers are now backed up with alternate locations all over the United States, maybe even the world. So if there's any type of disaster, you don't skip a beat. And now they're all, all this stuff now is like really internet dependent. So there's a demand for higher bandwidth. There's a demand for diversity among the delivery medium, for example, fiber or cable or wireless, cellular. Brings us to wireless. Wireless is changing as fast, if not faster than any segment in telecommunications. A lot of the applications that you have on your desktop, you can have on your cell phone right now. And people are using cellular technology to provide high-speed internet access, real high-speed internet access with 5.9 liability, 99.999% uptime. And the reason why that's so reliable is because we don't have to worry about fire or flood or ripping lines out of the ground or anything else like that. So the technology is getting to be more independent, user independent, I should say.
And it seems to me what the providers are going to have to do is start changing their investment model, or their investment of where they're putting their efforts. You know, you said it hasn't changed in 100 years. And, you know, I called somebody the other day and somebody on the phone was one ringy dingy, two ringy dingy. Now, I know that you were about the same age. If you knew what that reference is, then the younger
I know
people that are
exactly
watching
what
this
it
one
is.
have no idea.
I
But
know exactly.
we don't have that anymore. But now what we're having for the ringy dingy is because my area or your area where you're living has too many people flooding the bandwidth, it starts to suffer. And that's where I guess they're going to have to put the money going forward instead of the landlines and, you know, to support this thing. Yeah.
You know, right now, they're weaning, the local incumbent companies are weaning themselves off of copper because of there's facilities issues. You know, these are all buried underground. They get wet, they get ugly. And now, I mean, if you wanted to put in a plain old telephone number in a building somewhere, chances are that they're not going to commission it on copper. They're going to do it over fiber or a different delivery medium anyway.
Interesting. So, I mean, what attracts the end user to make the transition? And how does the end user decide on the services and when to consider a change? It's a multi-part question there I hit you with.
Yeah, well, you know, I use the caterpillar and the butterfly analogy. It's only when it becomes too painful for the caterpillar to stay in his cocoon does he break out and become a butterfly. And that's kind of like what it is with business telecom environments. And especially when they're stressed with stuff like this COVID and remote working, when it becomes too painful, when the operation isn't running smoothly, when there's reliability issues, and of course, when costs start to surmount, that's a trigger for people or companies to look into alternate types of services that quite honestly provide greater workforce efficiency, economics of scale, reliability, and redundancy. Yeah, it's but you know, it's this type of an environment now where COVID has given people just a little bit of a kick to go explore these kinds of things. And so that's where there's a big rush right now to get to the next level.
One of the biggest problems that we're going to see, and we deal with a variety of different clients. We deal with a lot of nonprofits with some limitation on staff, which I know you did a great article for our nonprofit newsletter about savings. We deal with some family or closely held entities, some of which were with the older generations that don't know how to make the change, and we deal with PE firms that are just looking to cut costs. I mean, how do the end users, you know, assess the viability of a transition like this? And the answer could be different amongst each one. I understand what you may say, it depends.
Sure. You know, what you have to look at is your current technology environment and see if it's meeting your needs first. And you know, chances are, yeah, you could be chipping along with it, but then you also have to always keep in mind a technology roadmap for each business, because if you're not keeping an eye on what your technology roadmap is going to look at and how you may be able to create operational efficiencies and do things in a more efficient way, you know, your competitors probably are. And so, you know, there are those companies that are proactive in doing that. There are other companies that are reactive in doing that. And each company has a different trigger as to why or when or to what degree they want to step their game up.
Okay, it's interesting. So if they do want to make a transition like this, and now I'm the plug and play guy. I'm at the point where now with my computer, I used to go to computer shows with my uncle and build computers and stuff, and now I just want to plug and play. So I mean, I don't think I go to Best Buy to get my new telecommunication, and it's not a commercial for Best Buy, by the way. I'll pick it. I don't go to Crazy Eddie's, okay, to get my new telecommunication provider or service. Who do they contact for something like this?
Well, I think what you have to do first is, and again, it gets back to this, you know, your current environment and where you want to be, is one, you have to get the input of every business unit in your organization. That could be manufacturing, it could be sales, it could be admin, you know, R&D, quality assurance, whatever it is, because you're going to find out that each of these different business segments are going to have overlapping wants and needs. And the idea is to get buy-in from each of the business unit managers or stakeholders, so that everybody's sharing the same ideas. And then the focus of what technology, where you want to go and how you want to get there becomes a group effort. It changes from telecom being an operating expense and managing the operating expense, telecommunications expense management, to telecommunications business management. And then you start to look at telecommunications as an asset or a tool to help the whole company in a variety of different ways. Once you outline what those are, when you outline what the scope is, then the focus becomes a little bit clearer. And then your IT department, if you have the resources, they can hone in on the types of services that they need, which ones have priority. And if you have those resources, then they have available time, chances are, they're familiar with the technology, because I'm sure they're getting a phone call a week of people that are trying to sell them cloud services or voice over IP or other different types of business licenses that do different things. So they're getting the phone calls, they know about it. Whether they have the time and the know-how to implement those things, you use them, you rely on them as much as possible, because they're the people on the heartbeat of your organization. But if you take it out just one outside of that, even bigger companies have outside resources that help manage their IT applications and cost. And you rope them in to some degree as well, because they will be they'll be the best people to give advice on how to direct each company on accomplishing whatever their technology goals are going to be in the short term and even in the long term. So, there are third-party consultants that do this kind of work too, like myself. The thing is to align, the company's got to align themselves strategically with other partners in technology that can provide these services. So they're out there. I'm sure, each company's IT knows of them, and if they don't know of them, they're probably getting phone calls from them that they haven't taken yet, but they're out there.
Great. And that's what I've always liked about you, Chuck. You did say that you're one of the people, but you didn't make a commercial about you, but you are one of the people. Okay. You provided a lot of names and a lot of information in there. You said that you are one of them, but it wasn't about you, but it was about them. So thank you very much for that. I did have one last question. I know that I'm going to have two questions. The first one you can probably answer. The second one you probably can't answer, but I have to ask it because I know that people are going to want to know. The first one is, what is the general timeline, would you say? I know it depends after that.
Once, and we still get back to that roadmap thing. Once you decide what your priorities are, that's the first thing. Now, your priorities could be driven because there's a pain stake in the company somewhere that is really causing a disruption in business. There could be the biggest priority could be to save money, because money's a big issue these days. So you set your priorities first, and then you decide what the financial impact of that's going to be. And as you start to see what the priorities and the financial impact is going to be by doing those types of feasibility studies, transferring one type of service to the other, then you'd be able to then define your scope a little better. Because there's three things that affect the cost of any project. It's time, resources, and money. So the minute that you start to, if you have a $10,000 budget and you want to do it in 9, well, you're going to have to do something about the resources. You're going to have to do something about the time. If you have a month to do it, but you want to do it in 3 weeks, well, either the price is going to go up because you have to add more resources. So it's like a triangle, and that will actually, once you start to narrow in on the scope and become a little bit more clearer about what a company wants and needs, then the timeline kind of like flows into place. So to answer your question from a 30,000-foot view, an analysis could take anywhere from a few weeks to a month. And then if we're talking about carrier changes or technology changes, that could be another 4 to 6 weeks. So, give yourself about 3 months to roll something out. And, a company like your own, you probably want to be careful about, rolling out a new technology on April 14th. Right?
Don't underestimate our abilities to do something like that.
Well, if you were coming to me, I would ask you to try to shy away from that.
Get your return file first, then do whatever the heck you want. Okay? Well, that actually leads into, or kind of answers the next question that I know you can't answer right off the top of the bat because it's not fair to ask you, but people are going to say it. How much does something like this cost? Is moving over to the Teams platform or voice over IP, is it now all license oriented versus, we have X number of telephone lines plus a fax line? Is that the way it generally is?
Yeah, well, as you know, probably know, Microsoft has been around forever, and they have a variety of different licenses. Some of those licenses work with lower seat applications like 300 people or less. If you want to get up over 300 people, then you need some types of enterprise licenses, which adds cost to your existing Microsoft license. So, that's all part of the analysis to do the feasibility study. But to answer your question, in a couple sentences, yes, your current licensing cost is one thing now, and you will experience some increase in cost if you're going to overlay a voice application. And then, of course, backing up and trying to get alternate services in there and make them redundant, or all you could get as bulletproof as your pockets could get deep. So, right.
Well, here's my bulletproof vest. Well,
nobody ever gets fired for picking AT&T, Verizon, Cisco, and IBM, right?
There you go. It's true. So Chuck, a lot of great information there. I'm sure that the viewers are in the position now where life has changed for them and their businesses, and they need to start thinking about this. And if they haven't, they should start thinking about it more, because we're not in the age of one ringy dingy anymore and the party lines and stuff like that. It's time to start looking to the next generation. And if you are from that generation that's still with the party line and the ringy dingy, the younger generation is looking at you saying, what are we doing here?
What are we
And they
doing
want to
here?
start moving forward. So,
Right.
so I want to thank you, Chuck, for doing the presentation today. And I look forward to coming up with another topic with you and presenting for the people again. So thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Brad.